Seniors Matter time. I'm your host, Brenda Charles Edwards. And thank you for joining us today. I just want to tell you a couple things that I may not have time to tell you at the end. So debates have been discovered for the election in 2 weeks for Seattle City Council Position 9 on the 15th at 6 p.m., Position 2 on the 16th at 7 p.m., and the mayoral election on the 18th at 6 p.m., only on Rainier Avenue Radio. Check your website, or I should say check our website, www.rainieravenueradio.com for more information. And now let's get this party started. So my guest today is Bishop Gwendolyn Phillips Coates, and she is a trailblazing voice in ministry, leadership, and the arts. Welcome to the show, Bishop.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here with you.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. It's a good day.
All right, you look great.
Thank you.
So let's get started. Can you tell us a little about yourself and your journey to becoming Bishop Gwendolyn Phillips Coates?
Well, I like to describe this journey as one that is actually led by faith and shaped by service. I grew up in a Christian home with a sense of community and compassion. And over time, after being the daughter of a pastor and helping my dad with his sermons sometimes because he didn't have a higher education. And so around 6 or 7 years old, I'd come in and read the Bible to him and became convicted by that word. And so then I felt this undeniable call of God on my life. And that call led me into ministry where I served faithfully for decades. And becoming a bishop was never about the title, but about the responsibility to guide and to nurture and to lead people with wisdom and love.
You have said a mouthful, and that is all so true. Oh my gosh. You've written and spoken extensively on illness, dying, death, and bereavement. What led you to focus on this area?
My whole ministry shifted because in 2001, which is the same year of the 9/11 attacks, my husband was actually on a plane coming to Seattle. He was coming back to Omaha because we had just been transferred to Seattle from Omaha, Nebraska. He was on a plane and he got grounded, and we just didn't know what to think. My phone was ringing off the hook. People were asking, where's Pastor Coates? He ended up coming home. We moved to Seattle in October of 2001. 59 days later, while I was waiting for him to come and take me to lunch in my office as pastor of Walker Chapel AME Church, he didn't show up, and I began to be very concerned. And as it turns out, he had had a brain bleed at home.
Oh, no.
Yes, and he was airlifted to Harborview and never regained consciousness and died a week later. Well, I wrote a book entitled Waiting on My Lunch Date, A Journey Through Grief and a Path to Joy. And that book led me to a white oncologist named Raleigh Bowden, who had received some money from one of her patients who was in palliative care, an African-American patient who said that more African-Americans need to know about hospice and palliative care because we actually come onto these services so late that we die during the intake or within 1 to 3 days. So Raleigh was looking for, Dr. Raleigh Bowden was looking for somebody to partner with to bring this information to the African-American community. And someone gave her my book. She read my book and felt that, while my book didn't have a lot of academic strategies in it, it was very heartfelt. And she felt that this message that came through my book could be very encouraging for people who were going through this kind of trauma, and that we could partner together and connect the dots. Well, from that, she recommended me to be a diversity director and outreach coordinator for a hospice organization in Seattle. And so that's how my life shifted from the pulpit at that time to working with a hospice organization and bringing the story of being prepared for end of life to the African American community and specifically the church.
That's really funny. This when 9/11, I remember very well because my now husband, I was waiting to take him to the airport, and I'm sitting there watching TV and watching all this going on. And I said, maybe we ought to find out if your flight's canceled or not,
Yeah.
as though that was really something else. But also, I'm not sure if we've had many conversations over the years, but I'm not sure if we talked about the fact that I'm also involved with end of life planning. I'm a certified end of life planning facilitator. And so what you're saying about our people in particular, they get information late. And that's something that not only has to be stressed that you can get it a whole lot earlier. I'm also a notary. And yesterday I received an emergency call to go up to a hospital where a lady had made the choice that she did not want to be on life support anymore. So but she didn't have a will and she didn't have some other things. So someone with legal knowledge wrote it up for her. And then I went up and notarized and witnessed her signing this. And she was in her right mind. In fact, when she was writing her name, she was spelling out each letter. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, okay, you know what you're talking about, don't you? You know how to spell your name. So, but we're afraid of dying, even though we know we're going to die. I remember telling my dad when he was having some health issues, you really need to put this in place. And he says, I'll deal with it when the time comes. But we know that's not happening. The family has to deal with it.
Absolutely. So here's one of the things that I try to stress, and it is difficult. It's becoming a little bit easier because I have found some ways to kind of interject humor, to talk about different places that people can actually have forms. There's a document called 5 Wishes. I've created my own document, but 5 Wishes doesn't even need a notary unless you want one, right?
And I use that too in my workshops.
Yeah, so it is the advanced directive for healthcare, which is what you're speaking of, which is needed for people who decide that when it comes to the end of their life, they want to be in charge of what they go through. Absolutely. In other words, so if you don't know what life support is, it's a way to learn what life support is and what it will do to you. Because if you are at a place where you cannot speak for yourself and nobody knows, then heroic measures, which means that they're going to resuscitate you, they're going to pound into your chest and sometimes with your ribs, so that if you do come back from that catastrophic event, you're still all messed up because now you have to try to get your ribs back in order. And sometimes when folks are older, the bones are so brittle that it just is, it becomes a messier situation. So what I try to do and what I've done over the years, and even my doctoral dissertation on the topic of the church's response to illness, dying, death, and bereavement, what I'm trying to do is help people come to an understanding that you can make decisions for yourself ahead of time. Yes. Now, you can make a decision for yourself ahead of time, discuss it with your family, be certain that all of the necessary people have a copy of it, your doctor, your pastor, your friends, the agent that you have chosen to speak for you when you can't speak for yourself, but it puts you in charge. And here's the thing that I tell everybody, that you fill out these forms, you put them away, but you pick a time every year where you go back and look at these forms.
Absolutely.
So on your birthday or on an anniversary, or you just pick, the first day of the year, or, tax day, April 15th, but pick a day that you go back and you look at these documents, because first of all, what if you were married and now you've gotten a divorce and the agent for you was your former spouse, right? And
right.
you want to be certain that there's no hateration going on.
I know.
So that when the
Well said. Well said.
time
Yes.
so that when the time comes that the right choices will be made for you. I know that everybody has one or two people in their life that they said, I'm just going to let them go. But if
Yes.
you have it in writing,
Yes.
if
Yes.
you have it in writing, I want heroic measures, or I don't want life support. I understand what life support is, and I don't want that for my body. If in fact it appears that if you brought me back, I would not have a quality of life. So
Right.
that's
That's
the
the
caveat.
key. That's
That's
the
the
key.
caveat. You
Yeah.
wanna come back and be able to drive. You want to be able to
Mhm.
sit up and laugh. I
Rest
mean,
yourself.
dress yourself well. So listen. Let's back up. There are some people that would be okay with somebody dressing them and
Okay.
somebody driving them around and
Mhm.
somebody cooking for them if they could sit with their family and have a good conversation, right? So,
Right.
but that doesn't happen for a lot of people. I
No.
moved back to California in 2012 because my mom died in 2011 and my dad ended up having pancreatic cancer.
I'm
And
sorry.
so when he asked me to move back, we didn't have a diagnosis. He just said, your mom has died, and he was taking care of her and hadn't really been taking care of himself. So what he
Mhm.
said was, I want the child that has some medical knowledge to come back and be in this state with me. So I left Washington, went back to Southern California, and worked with my dad for those 6 weeks prior to his passing. And we had him on hospice care.
Hmm.
It was so beautiful when the hospice nurses, the CNA, the chaplain, and everybody came. I had charted the course. They knew when he pooped. They knew when he went to the restroom. They knew what color it was, right? They
Mhm.
knew when he took his medication. They knew when he woke up. They knew when he went to bed because I charted everything for them. Any unusual behavior, I charted all of that for them. So when they came in, it made their job easy. Now, I
Right.
know that everybody can't do that, but the hospice people themselves will do that.
Sure.
And it was funny when they brought in the little chaplain because she says, Mr. Phillips, can I sing a song with you? So she pulls out, she didn't know she was, she should have known by passing by a purple baby grand piano in the foyer of my sister's house that this was a musical house. But
Right.
this cute little chaplain comes in and says, Mr. Phillips, may I sing a song with you? So she picks up a piece of paper, right? And start singing Amazing Grace. Well, this was one of the days when family members had come to rally around my dad. We were sitting around the room. She started singing, and suddenly there was four-part harmony in the room,
Ah.
including the patient himself.
All
And my
right.
sister got up and went to the piano and began to accompany us.
Ooh.
So it's an important thing for even people who choose to do these positions that they are aware of where they're going, right?
Right. Right.
Even when we had to take my dad to the hospital because it got to the place where my sister just couldn't handle what was happening with him physically, we
Mhm.
took him to the hospital and we explained to the emergency people that this is Reverend Harold Phillips. You need to put him in a room where he can have visitors because people are coming, the family is coming, the church is coming, frenemies are coming, but everybody is everybody wants to come and just be with this man. And it ended up that even the emergency room doctor would come up and check on my dad because he said it's
Mm.
something about that man.
I
We,
love it.
yeah, we knew dad was going to pass. We had had conversations. We knew what he wanted. He allowed me to handle his hospice medications, and I am the one that ordered the morphine drip
Mhm.
because my dad said this is something we need to know that sometimes our elders, they don't say I'm in pain, right? They'll just say I'm a little uncomfortable. And daddy
Mhm.
used to, he just kept saying they say, well, Mr. Phillips, are you in any pain? He says, I'm just a little uncomfortable, I've got some discomfort. And so I went out to the nurse's station and said, I need you to send the doctor in, and it's time for them to start the morphine drip because my dad is too. He was skinning his teeth back, or his face was all scrunched up, and he biting down. I said, he's in pain. Let's
Yeah.
not leave here being in pain. So anyway.
Yeah. So if you're just tuning in, you're listening live to Seniors Matter with your host, Brenda Charles Edwards, on www.rainieravenueradio.world, your South Seattle community radio station. Do you know what's the best legacy we can give ourselves and our loved ones? Join me on Zoom or in person for a group or individual session on legacy end-of-life planning. Contact me at 206-683-2636. Now back to my guest, Bishop Gwendolyn Phillips Coates, who is passionate about empowering individuals and communities, especially in the areas of personal growth. We just talked about end-of-life preparation and legacy building. So what are some common challenges you see people facing with grief, and how do you help them navigate it?
So the most common area that I see for people that are dealing with grief is they are in denial. And sometimes they're pressured by family members, by the church to get over it. I mean, after all, when someone dies, you have a window of about 7 to 10 days when people are calling you, bringing food to the house and caring for you. And generally, all of that stops on the day of the funeral, right?
Right.
And so one of the ideas that came from the 5 Wishes document is it even has a place for the person who is the patient to say, if my family is struggling with my death, I want them to get help, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's grief counseling that is available. I'm a grief counselor as a pastoral counselor, but every hospice organization offers grief counseling for free, whether or not you have gone through their services. So folks are telling you to get over it. Everybody's asking me, why haven't you gotten married again? And then there's the questions of faith. We're saying, why me, or why now? And while I encourage people to be honest about their feelings, I also ask them to give themselves grace. Yes. And to understand that grief is not in a straight line, that nobody can tell you, well, this is what I did, and you do that, and it works for you. Right. So I emphasize the importance of faith. I also emphasize the importance of counseling, and also having a support system, because healing comes one step at a time.
Right. And, and one of the things that I learned, and not only with my training, but in my personal experience, was that having closure before the person dies. And like my dad and I, when he was sick the last time and I was in the hospital with him, I spent the night, and we were having this conversation like 2:00 in the morning, and I didn't think he was really aware of what he was saying, so then I asked him some questions, and then he says to me, I'm sorry for everything that I, did wrong to you. And I said, I was stunned first. And then I said, thank you, Daddy. I accept your apology. And that was closure for me. And so when the funeral happened, sometimes how you see people get a little emotional and they're crying out. So I had tears, but they weren't tears of
unresolved issues.
Thank you. That's it. That's it right there. Yeah. And that was a gift he gave to me, and he didn't realize, I don't think, that he was giving me that gift, but that was a gift, and that made things so much easier.
So I recommend that people give their families that gift every day. Mm-hmm. Don't wait until you're on your dying bed to now all of a sudden come up with this conscience that says, I have done some things, I have, stolen, I have lied, I have cheated, I have, done some things that have caused pain. I want people to get into the practice of every day saying, I love you, of every day saying, I forgive you. Every day saying, I'm sorry. Every day of our lives, we ought to be clearing the path for this gift that you have received, we need to clear that path every day of our lives. Why? Because we need to live each day as though
As
it's
if it's
our
your
last.
last. Amen to that.
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
don't know.
Tomorrow is not promised. And so if
No.
we, everybody doesn't get the opportunity. My mother died suddenly. She got up, went to the restroom. My father heard a thump on the wall, and that was it. She
Oh,
didn't
God.
have the opportunity to be in a hospital. My dad ended up having 6 weeks, but we didn't ask him for apologies. What we did was ask him, what are you leaving on the table that we can carry on for you? Because you've been given this prognosis. We don't know how long it will last, but while you are here and while you're not feeling like doing anything else, what is it that you want us to carry on for you? Right? What
Right.
can we partner together as a family and say that this big, robust, loving, gentle giant is leaving on the table, and we want to carry this on for him? And he was gracious enough to tell us, he always was concerned about the homeless. He was always concerned about souls. He wanted to be certain that people understood how to give their life to Christ so that when their time came, they wouldn't be so confused or angry or afraid about the next chapter.
Right. That's so wonderful. We have about 5 minutes left. So, what impact do you hope your work has on churches and faith communities?
So I hope that as we have these conversations and as I'm taking this workshop out into the marketplace to bring it to churches and organizations and even families, that we can start the conversation, that we will not be afraid to talk about death, because talking about death doesn't bring it in the room, right?
Right.
It
Right.
actually opens up a conversation about how we feel about death, how we feel about life support, how we feel about being ill. And in the church marketplace, that it would open up a greater compassion, so that when people are going through illness, or someone is dying, or someone has died, or now they're in the grief process, that the church will not drop them, and they will realize that it is a safe place, that it is a haven, it is a place with biblical foundation and pastoral care approaches with practical skills to help people move from the place where they are to a greater understanding of, you are not alone.
Absolutely. That's so well said. And that's probably a big piece, because people do feel alone. Like you said, after all the fanfare is over, all the food is gone, and people sometimes forget you, but it's not because they mean to forget you. It's that life is busy.
Right.
And so therefore they get caught up in their own lives again, because that piece over here is taken care of, they think, but that was only the beginning of the journey.
So if there's a team from the church that realizes, like the hospice organization, is that you follow a family for 13 months because you give them the opportunity to go through all the first birthday without them, the first holiday season without them, the first barbecue without them, the first family reunion without them. Now you're giving them the opportunity to go through all these first, where the grief seems to be unsurmountable for those first, but it wanes over time for some people. Because
Right.
I tell everybody that grief takes as long as it takes. Don't have anybody rushing you to just get over it and get on with your life, because they have. So if we prepare these teams and these organizations within church bodies and within organizations and understanding with families, that we'll have more compassion, and people will have a place to go, and they will feel as though they're heard and not pushed away to the side. Because that's why so many other people die quickly after going through a grief event, because they feel that there's nothing left for them to live for.
Right. Absolutely. How can our listeners connect with you, learn more about your work, or attend one of your workshops?
So I do have a website that's in the working.
I
I'm on
understand.
all
It's under construction.
It's under construction. And so it is creativelifeworksllc.com. But I'm on all the socials as Bishop Gwendolyn Phillips Coates, as Gwendolyn Phillips Coates. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. And so you can reach out to me that way. You can Google my name and then click on the link and you'll be able to reach out to me. So thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to share today. And I really hope that someone walks away or moves away from these moments knowing that somebody else cares.
Absolutely. And Bishop, I'd like to talk with you more about this offline from a personal level too. So
I'm available.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you to my listening viewing audience, and of course, my wonderful guest, Bishop Gwendolyn Phillips Coates. And a special thank you to MC Class, aka Robert D. Bassett Jr., with Delano C. Baychester LLC for the use of his music Ragtime. Have a great weekend, be safe, and live your life like it's golden. Hopefully, we'll see you guys next week. Love you. Bye. Talk to you later, Bishop.
All right.